Good evening and welcome to the Social Newsroom, and we're broadcasting live from the residence of Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. He is the 10th Vice President of the Republic of Kenya and is the leader of the Wiper Party, and also a new formation that we are coming to know and we should be able to hear more about as we continue with this conversation, and I have a feeling in the next few weeks to come, and that is the People's Loyal Opposition. Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, thank you so much for granting us this conversation at your residence, first of all, and I trust you're well and the year has started off well for you.
Thank you, Mark, and karibuni sana, welcome. Yes, the year so far, so good. We're not complaining. I think this is a year, I call it the People's Year.
People's Year.
Yes, and I can see there's already a lot happening in our country, within even the global setup. The Trump administration coming on board and trade wars emerging.
Right.
It's a very interesting new world order kind of thing. But out at home, here at home, we thank God we've started the year well.
And I think it's still safe to say Happy New Year because even
Yes,
the Chinese
indeed.
just celebrated theirs over the weekend.
Yes.
Something that's close to you as well in terms of how the year started, and I have to ask, and we were just speaking about it earlier, this is home. You'll tell us about the significance of this gazebo politically. But being home, where you've shared your time with family, and also Mama Pauline, how is she doing?
Well, Mama Pauline is holding on well. We thank God, and I want to appreciate the many, many friends who have been praying for her recovery. And indeed, we can't take this for granted. I attended in the recent past, 2 congregations, one in Kawangware and yesterday in Nisenet in Kajiado. And it's like the whole country is praying for her.
Right.
And she is very appreciative. We all are as a family. Of course, last year, towards the end of last year, we gave out our last-born baby to marriage, and Pauline was able to be there with me. We gave her out, Damari, out there in Leeds, married to, yes, Martin. Yeah,
Congratulations.
So that's great, and so we thank God. This is family.
And you've even dedicated, and we'll talk about this book later, you dedicated a 4th chapter to Pauline here.
Indeed.
Which is testament to who she is and has represented in terms of the force behind you. You must miss that, especially now with all that's happening politically.
I think that Pauline, I always think, is a vision bearer of the challenge that has faced me and the need to demonstrate servant leadership in our country over the years. Yeah, she's my best friend. Indeed, my very best friend. Had very long courtship, as you see in the book, 13 years. And I keep on telling young people, you can wait. Don't be in a hurry. You can wait until you go out to the altar and get yourself a spouse.
Right.
Yeah, so from difficult backgrounds in Tiva, where my wife's come from, and Sekuru, out there, in the same county though, but distance-wise, quite a place. So yes, Pauline is always watching, and she's with us.
And we celebrate you standing behind her as well. The reason I had to start with that is really to appreciate the force that she has been behind you over the years. I mean, you've been minister, you've been MP, you've been minister within successive governments, and now still very, very integral in the future of the politics moving forward. Speaking of future, let's rewind a bit and go back to June 25th last year, 2024, during the anti-finance bill protest, Gen Z-led protest. And we have tens of people who have died since from that, people missing, so bloodshed, destruction, but also the significance of what happened on that day when people made way into Parliament was a big statement to the leadership in the country for you. And we're looking at 4 months to go until we start observing at least a year after. A lot has happened. We're here today because of many things that happened since then. Cabinet reshuffle, broad-based government, abductions. What did that moment mean for you? And What did it represent for the government?
Thank you, Mark, for that very reflective interrogation of the situation we are in. June the 25th last year, according to me, marked a very important milestone in the political history of this country. It does, in my view, clearly show that Kenyans have come of age, taken all together. The young, the old, I think years of civic education, and as far as I'm concerned, when we started thinking about free primary education, free, but actually compulsory under President Kibaki, whom I had the privilege to serve as his vice president, this is a generation that actually enjoyed free primary education under President Kibaki. And we gave it to them. There was opportunity. I remember even an old guy called Marube at 84 went to primary one. The excitement then. But the younger ones also coming up. These are the Gen Zs who made a statement, not just in their own country or in the region, but the world over. Because as a result of what they did, they inspired even students, other people, as far away as Bangladesh, when Sheikh Hasina was forced out of office as Bangladesh's prime minister. And we have seen the inspiration right across Africa, in Ghana, in Botswana, most recently. So the happenings of 25th of June, which I want to actually call J25, June 25. It should be celebrated as a national day. That is my strong feeling. Whether or not Kenyans will agree with me, that is my view, because it is actually, it marks the beginning of a new, and actually an end of an era. Young Kenyans come saying, no, 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 we want our country back.
Yeah.
You guys have messed up. You have a constitution to which you all swore that you would uphold it. And some of you said as soon as you put down the Bible, we're going to see positive change. And instead, we are witnessing poverty at levels that have never been witnessed before. So the fact that they even were able to breach Parliament, again, as I happen to be a professional lawyer myself and a constitutional lawyer, the effect of June 25th in terms of Constitution 2010 was that the people decided to exercise their power. And under Article 1, power is vested in the Kenyan people. And they can choose to exercise it either directly or through their elected representatives. Now, young Kenyans decided our elected representatives are not representing us, so we will exercise our power directly. And the inspiration was #FinanceBill 2024. I must take you back a year before that. In 2023, I was in the streets along with my colleagues, Raila, Eugene, Mother Karua, Kioni, and I remember Kioni was the Secretary General of Jubilee, was wearing sufuria, and Kenyans were protesting against the high cost of living.
Yes.
We almost got killed. I keep for my grandchildren a canister, tear gas canister that was aimed at my head, just missed me by inches, and blew, exploded in the car, couldn't breathe. But that was in 2023. In 2024, where those mass demonstrations failed to reach in terms of even, because we tried to go to the central business, we tried to get to State House, and it was not possible. Yeah. But the young Kenyans, armed only with their national flag, a bottle of water, and their telephones, were able to do what we couldn't do in 2023. And they managed to get William Ruto, the president, to withdraw the whole thing. And he seemed to have panicked at that level because very quickly dissolved cabinet and even in trying to reconstitute the cabinet to form what he calls broad-based. Some of us have called it blood-based because we lost over 70 young people and many others were affected negatively. In 2023, we lost about 65. We were able to bury. Now, cumulatively, you kill young Kenyans simply because they are exercising their constitutional right to picket, to demonstrate. Kenyans are all now very clear of the provisions of Article 37 of our constitution, which says that every Kenyan has the right to demonstrate, to picket, to lobby those in authority, provided, and that's a very important proviso, they do so unarmed.
Right.
That's why I started by saying these young Kenyans were not armed. They were armed with the national flag. Is not a weapon. It's not a weapon of mass destruction. It's not a weapon that can cause harm. And so clearly their rights were aggressed upon. They were killed, but they made a statement. The 13th Parliament, and I was privileged to get to Parliament when it's the 5th edition. I actually did successive 6 terms as an elected member of Parliament. I have never seen a situation where Parliament was made to flee. Together their speaker, the speaker had to escape in an ambulance.
Yes.
And so what does that tell us? That Parliament was impeached by the people. So they know, even though they pretend to be doing certain things and be used by the executive, and again, all of us who live in this country know, the legislature, which is an important arm. There are 3 arms of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The first one to fall to William Ruto's manipulation was the legislature. And more particularly the National Assembly. The Senate has tried to do certain things differently.
And
so,
because you speak at a time where they've come from just a midterm retreat.
Yes.
In Naivasha, reviewing where they've come from and seeing what will be their priorities.
Yeah.
But what you're just saying
it's an impeached parliament. They will try to do that. And they know that the majority of them, if elections were held tomorrow, 90% of them will probably go home. Anybody who supported the finance bill of 2023 and 2024, they know deep inside their people are not with them. There are people who cannot. There are elected legislators
Yes.
who are congregating in Naivasha who can't go to their constituencies. It is as bad as that, because once you lose a moral authority to govern, there's no amount of posturing that can make you believe that you are still a validly elected leader. So the majority of them, in fact, the 13th Parliament should have dissolved itself. The Speaker of Moses Wetangula is a friend of mine. And I tried to suggest to him, why don't you just have this Parliament dissolved, call for fresh elections? Unfortunately, we realize there's a lacuna in the Constitution.
Right.
That this Parliament can only be replaced by another Parliament and that kind of thing. That is what they are hanging on. But you have talked of state capture. I said the National Assembly and the legislature generally, state captured by the executive. Now our worry is state capture of the judiciary. This is, for me, this is the last bastion. This is a hope. And if we lose the independence of the judiciary and make it subject to manipulation by the executive, then I can tell you we do not have a functioning democracy. It can only be a dictatorship.
So generally, you've spoken about the legislature, you've spoken about the judiciary, which is our last hope. But we'll talk about, there's a purge. People are calling it a purge, but it's really an intimidation to the judiciary to get the CJ out of office, to resign, by 13 advocates to be precise. However, let's speak just to give your current, in terms of state of the nation, assessment of the leadership of William Samoei Ruto. Has he failed?
He's done his 2 years, and I've said, I've even served under President Moi, President Kibaki, I've never seen a situation where the government in power enjoys less than 18% popular support as we speak. And that is why you don't hear much about public opinion, polling opinions, and of course they were very popular.
Yes.
But of course William Ruto is able to get briefing on a daily basis by the National Security Intelligence, and I'm quite sure he knows that his popularity rating after the Gen Z, I call it revolution, has been below 20%.
His deputy, now Kindiki, just the other day was saying the president in 2 years has done more than what played out under the government of Kibaki that you served.
I think Kindiki, my learned friend, must be living in Mars, not in Kenya. Because, I mean, can you imagine in 2 years, when did we have so many young Kenyans killed? When did we have a situation where people's rights have been aggressed upon? Where do we have a situation where the level of unemployment is, in fact, unquantifiable? And companies that have left, by the way, I must tell you, following the 2023 demonstrations, William Ruto and Raila Odinga formed a commission. I mean, they call it National Dialogue Committee, and I was privileged to co-chair.
Yeah,
and we listened, NADCO, we listened to Kenyans. And Kenyans were completely unhappy with the William Ruto administration as at that particular time. Now with the Gen Z revolution, it's even worse. It's whitewashed. And I think Kindiki lives in another country, not in Kenya. You can't even compare the achievement of Kibaki with William Ruto. By the time Kibaki was leaving office, the GDP growth of Kenya's economy had reached 7%. I don't know what it is under William Ruto. And even whatever it is, Kenyans are poorer. Kenyans are very unhappy. When we got Kibaki elected in 2002, Kenyans were judged internationally as the most optimistic country on earth. Mm-hmm. Today, I think we're the most depressed. The most depressed. This is the truth, and if therefore that assessment by Kindiki can only be his own.
You've mentioned NADCO commission that you were part of, and there were some recommendations that were to come from that. And we see something else playing out to lead to another commission. Now we're talking about let's form a commission to look in, commission of inquiry to look into the abductions. But almost, do you feel the NADCO commission was worth the time based on what we have done or the government has done so far with your recommendation?
I've now come to realize the intention of William Ruto was to use Raila to calm the situation, because already the country was in an upheaval.
Yes.
And William Ruto did not know how to handle it. So he reached out to Raila and they talked and they formed the commission. Well, as a result of the National Dialogue Committee, the NADCO report, we made a report which has been gathering dust, except, and we actually recommended 9 pieces of legislation, including some constitutional amendments. But nobody talks about that anymore. The only thing that they were able to do was the IEBC, Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, Amendment Act 2024. Even implementing that has been a problem until some of us came out and said, the ball stops with William Ruto. If we do not have an IEBC in place, already we're in breach of the constitutional requirement that after every 12 years there must be a review of our boundaries. We are into the 13th year and already, therefore, in breach of the constitution. We had made a specific recommendation under NADCO that we could extend this term to 14 to 15 years. But instead, nobody cares. Even setting up the IEBC selection panel has been a problem, a big challenge. Until now, we said by March, if there is no IEBC, no movement on IEBC, some of us are going to lead the streets. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite sure this time, that particular time, even the Gen Zs will come back again.
So
And
do-
if
would
there's
you-
one thing William Ruto is scared of, is a Gen Z revolution.
Would you say it was a result of that threat, that true threat that people go back to the streets that we saw in the past week, the select panel being appointed
Yes.
and now at work? Do you credit that to the threat?
Well, not necessarily the threats, but the reality of the situation. Because we had started hearing words like, we want to extend the presidential term. Because under the recommendation, one-time famous South African judge called Kriegler, who came in after the 2007 national crisis,
Yes.
one of the recommendations was at least 2 years to an election, there must be a working, functioning IABC. And I think there was an attempt was made to drag this thing on until we get to 2026 and there's no IBC, then William Ruto gets the excuse to say up to 2029 or something like that. So, but Kenyans are smart. They said there must be an election latest by 2027. So in less than 80 days now, there should be a new IBC commission because the selection panel has actually met, and we hope they will not be manipulated. Part of the reason William Ruto was afraid of getting the panel on, I think he looked at the composition, the representative of the Law Society, ICP, accountants profession, the religious formation, and one or two from government side, majority side, and one from Azimio, two from Azimio. Then he realized, wow, out of the 9, probably he has only 3. So again he panicked and started now to interfere with the nominees from Azimio side. This is part of the confusion.
Did he get his way in doing that?
No, eventually he lost out because Ambassador Kokimuli eventually was sworn in.
Right.
Professor Adams Olo, however, is a big problem because he was also a nominee from Azimio. William Ruto gave him a job as a presidential advisor. So I had to advise him to choose because you cannot serve as a state officer and also go into IBC selection panel. I hope he has resigned that appointment by Ruto. But what does that mean to us in Azimio? It means that we have compromised. I hope Adams Olo will rise to occasion. And more importantly, they're supposed to act as a selection panel, give us the best.
Right.
The best in terms of the chairperson and the deputy chairperson and the commissioners of the IBC.
So are you confident with the formation that we have?
We cannot be 100% comfortable with William Ruto pulling strings and doing this and the other, manipulating.
Right.
We will fight every step of the way to make sure the commissioners who come on board are people Kenyans can have confidence in. I've had people say, for example, if it was retired Justice Maraga, being the chairperson, Kenyans can live with that. If you're going to bring in, and unfortunately we say, fortunately or unfortunately, one of the NADCO recommendations was a principle of consultation between the two principals. At that point, the principals are William Ruto and Raila Odinga. Now, Raila Odinga is going to the AU, okay? William Ruto remains there. It is obvious that now we should be consulted, not Raila Odinga.
Who is we?
We, People's Loyal Opposition.
Interesting. But this, as you say, was between Raila, the leader of Azimio,
Yes,
and which you're part of, and William Ruto. So why not Azimio? Is Azimio dead?
You see, we have that problem. When Raila Odinga decided he was going to vie for this position, and we all wish him well, as Azimio, we stand with him. It is good for the country, for the continent. He's one of our best for sure, and his leadership skills and what he has gone through. We hope the continent can benefit from his experience. But you know, when he was leaving, he said that with regard to ODM, the party that he leads, he handed over the reins of leadership to Governor Peter Nyang', Governor of Kisumu. He should have done the same for Azimio. But for Azimio, he left it hanging. All right? And you can ask yourself, why? We've never tried to understand why. So the effect was his running mate, my learned sister, Mother Karua, decided, no, I'm not in this anymore. So her and the NARC Kenya party pulled out, gave notice under the agreement constituting the coalition of Azimio. You're supposed to give 90 days notice. She gave notice of her intention to pull out, and she pulled out.
Yes.
And more recently, Democratic Action Party of Kenya of Eugene Wamalwa also gave notice to pull out.
Okay.
So then that leaves Wiper, Jubilee, KANU, and a host of some other smaller parties.
Are you giving
So
notice to
really,
pull out?
therefore, Azimio is dysfunctional.
Are you giving notice to pull out? As
We don't want to necessarily do that. We are consulting. But clearly,
Consulting
we
or
can't go into the next election with Azimio.
Consulting or fence sitting?
Not fence sitting. We are actively consulting. We are reorganizing. We are reorganizing, but we are all in agreement. Azimio, as presently constituted, his this time is spent. Therefore, either we come up with a new coalition, which is what we are trying to do, or perhaps with concurrence of people, and I don't see much in that regard, people saying, let's rebrand Azimio. I don't think Azimio is rebrandable. Therefore, we have to come up with a new coalition.
And you don't see Azimio going to 2027, so in effect what you're saying, Wiper as well, is really not going to be in Azimio?
No, I'm not saying that, because as of now, we have not taken that decision. And I lead a political movement which is very consultative, very consultative. But everybody seems to be in agreement that Azimio is actually spent. Because under the terms, I mean, if you look at the coalition agreement of that coalition, the party leader is actually even a political party, which has not complied with the provisions under the Political Parties Act. The members of Azimio are two. I think now one, Raila Odinga and Mother Karua. Okay? Okay. Now, if it's a political party, which is also a coalition. Now, the council chair is former President Uhuru Kenyatta. The council has not met. The leadership of the party has not met. In fact, we are fortunate that we have not received a letter from the registrar of political parties saying this party is deregistered.
Yes.
It's as bad as that.
People's loyal opposition, then, who are you? What's your destination? Where do you stand?
You see, we, in Parliament, we still have, amazingly, a situation where we have the majority party and the minority party. At the level of National Assembly, we have, of course, the leadership of Ruto's party, and then we have, in the National Assembly, Mheshimiwa Junet Mohammed, who is himself the Secretary General of Azimio. He never opens his mouth to talk about Azimio. And yet, by virtue of being from Azimio coalition, he is the minority leader, deputized by Robert Mbui of Wiper Democratic Movement. And I don't even know when the rest of them, the two of them will have met and talked about Azimio. Yet they are there, effectively, talk about Azimio leadership. The same in the Senate. We have Stuart Mazayo, the senator for Kilifi, who is a minority leader, and we have a senator from Kitui, Enoch Wambua being the deputy, and again, the same story. Azimio just by name. So we have to be realistic. We can't go to the future with a limping organization. So we have to do something about it, for sure.
A limping organization or a plan B for Raila if things don't go his way with the Africa Union chairmanship elections this month?
I don't see how Raila Odinga will lose the chairmanship and come back and say he wants to lead Azimio. I'll be amazed personally. Oh, I would really, truly be amazed. That would be not the Raila Odinga I know, because he must also have a reality check. But for now, the option is he goes. He goes. If he wins, beautiful for him, the country, and the continent. If he loses, I think he should simply retire.
But it seems there's a lot of support from either side, opposition or government, that Raila takes it not out of the goodness of the hearts of the people backing this up, but to get him out of the way.
Maybe that was William Ruto's intention. I keep on hearing that. Because William Ruto mistakenly believes with Raila Odinga out of the scene, then he can cultivate Raila Odinga's constituency. He thinks that loyalty is transferable. Political loyalty is not transferable. For example, I think that when the chips, when shove comes to push, and I visit Luo Nyanza, having supported Raila Odinga a record 3 times, I think if Ruto gets some of the votes, I must get the majority. So he's making that mistake, fundamental mistake. And I think Raila Odinga recently at a funeral said, wait a minute, I'm my own person. Nobody is pretending he's giving this thing to me. So there's a lot of lack of clarity. But I think the intention of William Ruto was, you think that he can get Raila out of the political scene in Kenya, then he will have a second term. Now, I can tell you that it cannot work that way. I started by telling you that less than 20% of Kenyans approve of this leadership. Whether or not Raila goes to the AU, it doesn't go. William Ruto's days are numbered as leader in a democracy. Mm-hmm. In a democracy. And I think he should prepare to leave.
So are you saying, in effect, because you feel if Raila does not get the chairmanship, if it plays out that way, that he should retire from active politics in Kenya?
I will advise Raila to retire. And support, like William, join Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru is out of the leadership. He's not intending to run again. I think Raila will join Uhuru in that capacity. Retired statesman.
And back who for opposition leader?
Of course, it will be his choice. But knowing Raila Odinga, he will not want to betray again, because I had a candid discussion with him after the GNC revolution and the formation of the so-called broad-based government. I told him, Raila, my brother, I'm concerned about your legacy. You have spent all your political years fighting for democracy, for positive change in this country. And look at what these young people have done. We can't afford to betray them, because they said, tutaenda kusalimia baba. And they did. All right? So I don't see, I think Raila then will have a second chance to say, hey, that was a misstep. I must be with the people. And if he chooses to be with the people, he will support us.
Again, you say us.
But if he wants to support Ruto, of course we will deal with them both.
Okay, so if you say us, he will support us. He is known to be a kingmaker as well, Raila Odinga. That's why he's a force unto himself, not one to be wished away. And he has the ODM party to fall back on. For Luo Nyanza, much as you say you could go and get support there, don't you feel there's still someone within ODM that would take the mantle of the leader of ODM and by extension fill that gap that Raila will leave?
Well, that is the work of course, ODM themselves will have to cross that bridge. If they come to
are not with you in the people's
we are with, well, they are with
opposition.
us. I can tell you this Sunday was Secretary General Sifuna, and I know that if you want to gauge Raila's political position, listen to Jim Orengo and listen to Sifuna and to Peter Nyang'nyong. All right? So I can tell you, this is why there was a feeling that we should form this coalition ahead of the AU elections. But we say, if we do that, it will lock out a lot of members of ODM who want to be with us. So we have taken the decision, say, let us get Raila's election done over with, and then we reconstitute our new coalition. That will take into account ODM.
Someone watching might say, Honorable Kalonzo, you're really trying to get rid of Raila.
No,
Get him out of the way.
no,
So
no,
you
it
could
is
have
Ruto.
no-
It is Ruto is actually doing that, as we are not.
But you'd be happy that he gets it and he is out.
Of course, we are happy if he gets the chairmanship, and of course he shared with us the vision and whatever. Yeah, but it's not a matter of getting, it's not really getting rid of Raila Odinga. By the way, we are not getting younger, are we? Raila is now turned 80 years. Let's be realistic, okay? So this is where we are.
Okay. I need to get to the point of opposition because many have said we do not have an active opposition and a voice to stand for the people against the government. Do you see an opposition? Who is it?
Oh,
Who is the leader?
We are the opposition. And those who are saying we do not see an active opposition, let them just I'll give them two examples. The loyal opposition, the people's opposition, decided will not allow the takeover of a strategic national institution like the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It's a security installation. And imagine what would happen even to the security of this country if this is under foreigners. We not only opposed that move, but we went to court. I personally
But
went to
Raila
court.
is on record as supporting that deal, isn't he?
I think he changed his mind. I think he said, he wasn't fully in the picture. He tried to support.
Okay.
And that, again, that is his right. He supported, maybe at the wrong facts or something. Over that, we differed. This is the thing about the essence of democracy. So if Raila supported the takeover of JKI, I opposed the takeover of JKI, we are still friends. But we have to take into account the national interest. It had to, when William Ruto realized this is a big mistake, he cancelled it. Of course, perhaps persuaded by what the Americans had also done. Mm-hmm. So that's one example. Would you call that a weak opposition?
However, some might
Look
say
at this other one.
single-handedly, it was Nelson Amenya who actually...
Well, Nelson Amenya was a whistleblower. We are very grateful to him. But Nelson Amenya did not go to court to handle this matter.
But thanks to him.
Oh, we thank him, for sure. As
and
a whistleblower.
also picked up with Gen Z.
Yes, the Gen Zs. In fact, in one case, we were appearing before Justice Namue, and the Gen Zs crushed it. Mm-hmm. In my view, I wouldn't say any Kenyan, but the majority of Kenyans will know the importance of such a strategic national institution.
Yes.
So I'm just giving you the example of how effective the opposition is.
Yeah, the other example.
Not only that, when the young people have been abducted, again we went to court. We demanded that we want these young people produced dead or alive. We wanted the presence of Inspector General of Police and the DCI man, okay? And they were prevaricating. We went to court severally. Did they not eventually show up? So this is actually practical demonstration of the strength of the opposition, this time leading by example. I've actually openly said, as opposition, we want to have discussion in the Law Society of Kenya, see whether we cannot now form a commission of inquiry. It cannot be led by William Ruto, nominees or appointees, where the civil society groups, the church groups, concerned about the killings of our young Kenyans, right, forming a commission of inquiry. Because the police have themselves said, we don't know who is abducting these people, right? And everybody is running away from it. And yet there's a squad.
Yes.
So the truth must come out. There's been an international hue and cry over this matter. It is an aggression against people's rights. It is a crime against humanity to abduct people. And we're also actually dealing with it from that angle.
Right.
When we did the 2023 demonstrations and young people were killed, we instructed the lawyer, Paul Mwangi, to take this matter up with the International Criminal Court. Mm-hmm. Now we've been compiling all this evidence. This is more than opposition. This is real. Real. And without demeaning my brother Raila, I can tell you that Raila knows who has always been behind him and beside him. So So we are not chest thumping, but we are the opposition. And of course, the young people as well. They have come out as a real opposition. In fact, our business right now is to organize this country, put it in order, and hand it over back to the owner, give it to the owners to continue.
Is Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka saying he is the leader of opposition?
I think my colleagues have actually been saying so. If you listen to my colleagues, they've given me that honor. So far, presumptive. There's such a thing as facts speaking for themselves.
Okay.
Lawyers will call
With
that
the
doctrine.
blessing of the
They know it.
default opposition leader, Raila Odinga? You say
He has never come out to say, hey, my friend Kalonzo cannot be the leader. He knows it.
But he hasn't said it.
He hasn't said it, and I can understand. Maybe he thought by saying that it may jeopardize his chances with William Ruto, because his candidature is state-backed. And if it's state-backed, it is the men and women who have the instruments of power, who give instructions to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to carry out campaigns on behalf of the country's candidate. Therefore, obviously, Raila is beholden to William Ruto in that regard. And therefore, maybe he says, Steve, take over the leadership of Azimio, maybe that will annoy his benefactor. We don't know.
Is there a side of betrayal of Raila, who many came to the streets with and supported in 2023, the protests that you were part of as well, and now he's working with the government in this effort to join the Africa Union as a chairman? Has he betrayed the Kenyans who backed him?
I think that one is, the jury is out there for Kenyans to take some informed position. I think that knowing Raila, he would want to take the earliest opportunity to tell Kenyans that he never betrayed them. How that will happen, I think, is entirely up to him.
No.
But I don't want to pass judgment.
It's
is
not
his
judgment.
constitutional
It's just
right.
by the same
his
arguments.
constitutional right.
Exactly.
To do whatever
Yeah.
he thinks should be in the best interest of himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
The issue of the broad-based government, which you've called, or you said, is also called blood-based government or bread-based government by some people, is in the same extension or same breadth of argument, that line of betrayal. So you say you speak...
The guys who have joined William Ruto as cabinet
Raila's
members,
yes.
they are not Raila's people. In fact, I remember Raila himself saying, these people have joined on their own, all of them. And I can tell you, if I live in this country, and if there's democracy in this country, none of those men will get elected to any elective post during the next elections. None of them. That therefore tells you, at that level, and I've said it myself, without any ought against any of them, they are the betrayers. I can tell you, from a position of authority, that Raila Odinga had wanted a national convention, all right? And then a national convention out of which then, Azimio side will say, well, we give you our nominees out of full consultation. And William Ruto will get his own people, but taking into account the need to compensate those Kenyans who are killed, right? And by the way, has it ever occurred to you, not a cent by way of compensation, reparation to the affected families whose children were killed? Do you think Kenyans will forget somebody called Rex Masai? We say justice for Rex Masai, who was just failed for no reason. And nobody thinks about compensation. Well, I can tell you that did not happen. So, and I told Raila, my friend, you have been snookered by Ruto. I told him. So this whole thing is machinations by Ruto, and I think because of this need to get state support, and Raila did not feel strong enough to push them to the corner. But I think the time will come for Raila to push them.
Even as AU chairperson?
I think he can. The moment he's there, he's not beholden to William Ruto's vote. He is a chairperson of the AU Commission, and he must stand strong.
Right.
In fact, he sees as being a Kenyan. He becomes an African leader.
By the same argument that you say, those who joined the broad-based government through cabinet, like
And
such
some
as
of them
Treasury,
said,
CS,
some of them were Uhuru sponsored. Uhuru, I think those who know,
yes,
people who know they just wanted to, an impression Uhuru supported them or something. They are on their own.
and you say they won't make it back to office.
No,
again
they
if
cannot be
ever
elected.
stood.
They will lose. They know it.
So,
You can't have your cake and eat it.
So if by the cake that Raila is having in AU, he will not eat another.
One of
piece
them
cake.
actually jokingly told me, oh, this Kina Kalonzo, how? These Kalonzo people and his team, they want to remove Peremende from my mouth. Oh, I said, wow, it's all about Peremende, not about Kenyan lives.
This is one of the CS.
And Peremende is sweet.
Yeah, this is one of the CS.
Let my friend remain nameless.
Nameless.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's one of the recent appointees.
Yeah.
However, you do say then that by extension, Raila also can't have his cake, AU chairmanship, bid, and eat it. So, like, come back and participate in local politics and expect support of the Kenyans because he's betrayed them.
You know, if he's a chairperson of AU Commission, clearly he can't come home and campaign. He will not go and stand next to Ruto and say, elect William Ruto in 2027. No, he can't. You know, by virtue of that position that he'll be holding, William Ruto will have to face up to one Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. He said it himself in Homa Bay. He said, now it looks like the only person is Kalonzo I have to face. Of course, demeaningly.
Yes.
But I think he has come to realize it was a mistake even to announce that candidature.
Do the others in the people's loyal opposition back you? Who is that? You're talking about Eugene Wamalwa?
You know, Eugene has just announced he wants to run for president under DAP. I'm quite sure
And you
that
were there.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. And it's not the first time it is happening. I remember before the formation of the Pentagon in 2007.
Yes.
Yeah, men and women were standing up and then they are running for president. But we will. Basically, they're saying we are coming to the table, we will negotiate and get one of us to face up to William Ruto.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, now we're talking about the current situation right now. The people's loyal opposition comprises of who? You just say
well,
but
we have been
comprises of-
issuing various statements and talking about that. And I must be grateful to my two colleagues, Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa of DAP and Mheshimiwa Jeremiah Kioni and former Governor Waitito, for example. They have been there saying, this is our leader. Mm-hmm. This is our leader. But when it comes now to facing an election, maybe they will say, okay, continue. And we're going to welcome other people, progressive forces, who are determined to make William Ruto one-term president.
Is the deputy president, the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, one that you are willing to work with?
We'll work with every progressive leader who is determined to defeat dictatorship we are seeing right now, and an administration that is not only involved in serious pilferage of resources, but also misrule and 90% move towards total dictatorship and totalitarianism. So there are many others. If Mheshimiwa Gachagua wants to join, of course, you'll be most welcome, and others and others.
Right. He says on February 9th, that's in a few days, I believe 6 days, he will be making a crucial announcement. But what is happening right now is that he is looking at a report outlining Kenya's preferred form of governance. Are you privy to this, since this is someone you're working with?
No, we met, of course, at the launch of the new headquarters for DAP.
Yes.
And I remember I said very solidly that in removing William Ruto, we will have to be selfless.
Yes.
Selfless. Because Kenyans would want a regime taking over, which is going to actually even address some very basic issue, like the integrity of the payslip. Today, an ordinary Kenyan is paying, anybody on a payroll is paying close to 49% of their income. to William Ruto's administration. And it's unimaginable. Donald Trump has come to his second term in the U.S. Telling the world and Americans that he will cut down taxes. So, and William Ruto has himself happily accepted to be called Zakayo by Kenyans. He doesn't mind overtaxing Kenyans to do stuff which is, some of it is incredible, like this housing levy. We have said that executive order number 1 of the new administration will be to get rid of the taxing, the housing levy taxation. Mm-hmm. It is unconstitutional. It is, in our view, outright theft from Kenyans. And we've also said the health sector has collapsed. Those legislators we referred to, well, the other day in Naivasha, they have since come back to Nairobi, I believe. Right. They're very clear that this social health authority, and SHA and SHIF have failed, right? An old mama called Njoki, who was a nurse, goes to tell and scream on top of her voice that this thing is not working. And what does she get instead? She's arrested by a group of policemen. And she's supposed to be appearing in court to answer charges. For what? Right. This thing has failed. Our education system is in shambles. Yesterday in Ethernet, for example, the pastor there brings to the front a young person he has helped to go through high school, took him to Meru, although he's from Masailand, and they're saying this young man has got a B, all right? So how do we now, can you people try help me? And even the teachers, some ladies who qualified as P1 teachers, many of them out there doing nothing. So we told the pastor that this is very good, that you have educated this young man of very high moral probity and you want him to go to university. But we can tell you that we used to have Higher Education Loans Board, which made sure that Kenyans, young Kenyans who wanted to acquire university education would get funding for it. That's how we all benefited, including William Ruto. I actually, when I was Minister for Education, appointed the present-day governor of Baringo as the CEO of Higher Education Loans Board. A lot of Kenyans have benefited. Now, children from poor families have no hope of attaining university education. So if you take together, health is failed, education is shambles, all right? Overtaxation, abductions, and everything. What do you make of a system like that? Speaking of the abductions issue, and I'll get back to the formations politically moving forward. You were there with CS Justin Muturi, who has spoken very boldly, much as he is in the government of William Samoei Ruto, saying that the president must answer as to who is behind this. And you support the formation of a commission of inquiry. And you've said that enough times. But there's now a push from within to have him resign. What do you say to that? Most latest I would not be surprised. You know, the art of psychophancy in Kenyan politics is not new. But I think they picked on the wrong guy. I don't know. Justin Muturi himself will decide what he thinks. But I think he'll be fired for sure. Because these people can't have him. I supported his position on formation of a commission of inquiry. And all he was saying was the highest person who bears authority over this country is the president of the republic. So he must be, at the end of the day, ultimately responsible, because it is the responsibility of any government to ensure safety and security of its citizens. If there's failure at that level, Muturi was saying, I was lucky. I was able, because of proximity to the president, when my son was abducted, I called him. I went to see him, actually, and he picked up a phone and instructed other people. But I hold the view that the person bearing the highest responsibility is William Ruto, not the Director General of NSIS or other people, because these are officers working under. And by the way, in terms of the Rome Statute, it is as clear as that the person bearing the highest responsibility is the one answerable.
And in your view, this person is none other than the person behind this. Could you
Absolutely.
call it state-backed?
Yes, state-backed.
You're saying President William Samoei Ruto is responsible for the abduction?
We buried the chairperson of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, Madam Roslyn Odede.
Yes.
And at our funeral service, we all really were appreciative of the position the Kenya Human Rights Commission took on the 26th of December on abductions. And I remember retired Justice Maraga himself calling this state-sponsored. It's so state-sponsored. We are Kenyans, and this is a country you can never lie to anymore. I remember there's also artificial intelligence. Yes. It's possible to see who is lying and who is telling untruths. And so this matter, therefore, in my view, the person bearing the highest responsibility is the President of the Republic.
And you have information, you have intelligence, of course, even in your circles right now. There's been moments where you've said, especially when people said you backed out on standing with Baba when he was doing the parallel swearing in back in the day.
Oh.
And people say you have information as to whether people are following you and what have you. If you have this information as to this being state-backed, how else could you use it to the advantage of Kenyans rather than just calling a press briefing? If you do know and you have the intelligence.
Well, just said we are in the process of consulting now, constituting a commission of inquiry, which I propose should be led by the President of the Law Society of Kenya or our appointee, because this is a reputable organization, and other people like Boniface Mwangi, I mean, all the activists and others should feel free to come and be part of this process. And the churches as well. Yes. The Catholic Church, the Evangelicals, the Anglican Church, everybody wants to get to the bottom of this issue.
Okay.
But it cannot be left to William Ruto, who is himself seen to be complicit.
Right.
Yeah.
And now back to what we're looking at working forward. And I want us to talk about this space in a bit as we go back to your experience of political agreements, since you have a lot of experience in people coming together saying they will honor this agreement and that agreement, but people don't always keep their word. For those who might say...
By the way,
yes.
Without cutting you short, you referred to the swearing in of Raila Odinga
yes.
after the 2017 elections, right? Yeah, and then that led to a handshake, yes. Okay? That was a fiasco, absolute fiasco. In fact, when the ruling was made in our favor that there should be a repeat election, Raila and us felt without leveling the playing field, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. I actually took the time to take my wife to hospital during that repeat election.
Right.
And although I would address congregation, people, wherever they were gathering, and to tell them not to turn up for that election because it was fake. Uhuru Kenyatta saw that the writing was on the wall. He looked for Raila Odinga, okay? And then they had the first handshake. And even that handshake thing, I saw it when Raila was reading from Harambee House.
Yeah.
Musalia Mudavadi was the other colleague at the time under NASA. So there's been a lot of political deception, all right? And some of us are fed up. I can't play that kind of game. No. And I think I've realized my biggest problem is I've been too trusting as a political leader. I remember this one I can mention. Raphael Tuju told me, Steve, your problem is when you say, let us pray, you close your eyes. And when you open your eyes, you're on your own. Yeah, this time I'll keep my eyes open.
So in that regard, because this time there's a lot of maneuvering politically, it seems, or it would seem, you will be working with Rigathi Gachagua.
With a team. It will be a team.
Yes.
Put it that way. Must be a team.
He not too long ago was with Martha Karua as well.
We'll be working with Mother.
We'll work together.
We'll work with Mother. We'll work with everyone.
Someone might look at the picture and say you're working with someone who has been part of the government of the same person you are castigating right now.
See, why don't we cross that bridge when we get to it? I think Rigathi Gachagua is saying a lot of things some of us didn't know. And I think it would be good. I will be waiting to hear what he says. Did you say the 9th?
February 9th, yes.
On the 9th. I'll be waiting. I'll tune in to hear what he says. Because a lot of truths are coming out. I think it's clearly showing that he's a truthful man. I think in the house he is a bishop, okay? Right? So, and so you don't want to condemn a person unheard.
Yes.
Yes, I've heard people say, oh, you are part of the same crowd. No, 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 no. I think by now, for example, I've been called names. I think the ones who called me names are really the ones who now rightfully own up to those names. Honestly, and I don't want to name names.
Watermelon, those names.
Do you hear anybody talk about watermelon? Because we have taken a stand. Right. I said, we will stand with the young Kenyans. I've said it, in fact, I'm calling it J25, June 25 revolution. Yes. And we give it to the children of this country. And others went in and took bread, perimendes, and what have you. Mm-hmm. Honestly, how do you ride on the blood of our children? I have a problem. And therefore, anything that smells blood for me, out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so far, you're willing to listen to Rigathi, you're willing to listen and...
I don't know, I keep on repeating Rigathi. Yes, I'm telling you, the team. Yes. Maybe he's the new kid in the block, I don't know, as they say, blue eyes.
He's outstanding.
Because he's actually saying it, as nobody else will have heard. Did he not mention, I think he mentioned the racketeers and others? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's going to tell us. So I encourage him to even bring out more.
Okay.
So that Kenyans will know what type of a government he was serving in.
Speaking of what type of government he's serving in, there is a current move and a continuous move to push the Chief Justice out of office. And there has been word from the Alliance of, I believe it's magistrates over the weekend, that they are against the intimidation by 13, I believe it's 13, 13 advocates petitioning the JSC for removal of Chief Justice Martha Koome and Supreme Court judges citing gross misconduct. The Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association has termed this as intimidation of the JSC and judges, especially on the social media platforms. How do you read this?
When the security of the lady Chief Justice was withdrawn, and then there was, some kind of, I've had my security withdrawn here. And you get excuses like, they have gone on training, right? We withdrew the promotion so they can be, that kind of trash, I'm sorry to say. The reality was the security of the Chief Justice was, if it was not withdrawn, they threatened to withdraw it. Yeah. And that is an aggression against one arm of government, which cannot be allowed in a democracy. So on that, we came out strongly. Those people say press conferences, that was one important press conference. Mm-hmm. We said you cannot play with the security of the leader of one arm of government. Mm-hmm. Or they came out, Murkomen and others, no, and that kind of stuff. Misunderstanding, what have you. Oh, my goodness. Now, some of us who have gone through that can tell you that is hogwash.
Okay.
But Chief Justice Martha Koome made an amazing ruling after the last general election when she presided over the petition filed by Raila Odinga, Martha Karua. I was the second petitioner in 2017 when we filed the petition before Chief Justice Maraga, and he ruled in our favor. I was also the petitioner in 2013 when we filed the petition before Chief Justice Willie Mutunga, and we will call Raila Odinga the petitioner. I was the second petitioner. Mm-hmm. So we're conversant with these things. I think that the ruling that Lady Justice made is what a lot of Kenyans have been looking at and saying the language used was not that expected of the President of the Supreme Court. But again, it was a collective thing. That is now water under the bridge.
Okay.
What we must fight for with our lives is independence of the judiciary. Now look at the character, who are those petitioners? If one of these is Ahmed Nasir, senior counsel, yes, and Mr. Have, who doesn't know those two in particular, are UDA. So if it is UDA interfering, all right, then there must be reason to worry. If, on the other hand, the performance of the judiciary has been found wanting because of corruption, those things cannot also not be wished away. So we must separate between those who are interested of getting rid of the Chief Justice because they are doing it in order to support William Ruto's agenda of further demolishing institutions under the Constitution, or and between those and others who have a genuine concern about, I've in mind somebody like Senior Counsel Kamau Kuria. I know that he is very concerned.
Paul Muite.
And Paul Muite and others, who are serious people who would want to see independence of the judiciary. Okay? But when you have a judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Lenaola, for whom I have respect, actually highlighting during the impeachment process of Deputy President Gachagua, saying that the filing system of the judiciary was interfered with by the state. What does that tell you? Man, we are in danger. On that account alone, that is worse than Watergate under President Reagan or President Nixon. William Ruto's government should have resigned if it is indeed true that they interfered with the filing system of the judiciary to allow an aggrieved citizen from filing their own papers. So that, and I don't know how many Kenyans will have caught sight of that. So this issue of trying to interfere with the independence of the judiciary is a very serious matter. If they want, on the other hand, to have a tribunal, if you want to get rid of the Supreme Court judges, you know, you have to form a tribunal for each one of them. How long will that take? And where does that leave the country? So we have to have serious interrogation of this whole matter. But if there are those who are driven by bad faith, lawyers will call them malavides, bad faith, then we must call them out. We'll call them out.
And speaking honestly to her performance and the performance of the judiciary, judges and what have you, to the complaints of how efficient they have been, that's your profession. And honestly speaking, what's your assessment of the judiciary?
A lot needs to be done. There's corruption everywhere in our system. And it therefore behoves, that's a role of the Judicial Service Commission to do something about it. It's an indictment against the performance of the Judicial Service Commission itself.
Is that a reflection of the CJ?
Reflection.
Is it a reflection of the Chief Justice?
Well, yeah, one can look at it that way, but I then look at the politics. Separate the performance of the Chief Justice from those who want to take opportunity to further denigrate the whole thing about separation of powers. That will not allow.
Okay. So in your
as senior counsel, I would say flatly, no.
And it's, you see a push from, because of those who are backing it up, members of UDA, UDS.
Senior counsel.
It is definitely a push from
Of course it is. Everybody knows that William Ruto has his own formation because he cannot face up to the next election with Chief Justice he's not sure of.
Right. Just reading some of the comments on YouTube, and there's an audience on TikTok. I don't know if you're on TikTok yourself.
Yeah, I am.
Yes, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, and many are following the conversation. We thank you for that. We have Collins Kime. I don't know if you have sent him to write this, but he says, Kalonzo and Martha Karua for president. Ruto must go. Joel Mutua says, Kalonzo Matiang'i ticket. Frederick Otieno says, if Baba fails, let him be in the side of people and support Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. Samingere, Kalonzo Musyoka, Tosha for 2027. Free Agent Podcast, if we are serious about this country and we want to be successful, then Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka is the only option we have. Umetuma watu kwa comment section.
I haven't sent nobody. Maybe Paloma.
Maybe. No. She's in the background somewhere here.
I doubt.
But keep the comments going, and please, to the team behind the scenes, please send me the screenshots of the same on my platform so I can be able to read that. To this room where we speak, just as a sort of a break into the next part of the conversation, this is gazebo in your home. Tell us the story about
It's a very,
this room.
it's a very unique small gazebo. If it was able to speak, it can tell stories of its own. But it happens to be the setting of the book that I wrote,
Yes.
Against All Odds.
Yeah.
Because it was in this small gazebo, for example, in 2013, when my brothers, William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, in the company of a gentleman called Jimmy Wanjigi, came.
In here.
Yeah. It was after what we had that formation called G7. And G7 did not work, and it was looking like, So they came to come and tell me, you know, you've been part of us. And remember, I even undertook the famous, was it in famous, shuttle diplomacy because of ICC.
Yes.
When I said that it is shameful for us as a nation to have our citizens tried in foreign lands, let's have a local mechanism that will deal with this matter of post-election violence, the victims of the same, and blah, blah, blah.
Something you got castigated for as well.
Yeah, I was castigated,
yes,
and others appreciated.
Death out of that, yeah.
And so, then I came and said, we are tied to the hip. That is William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. So, we want to persuade you to look for anything else. Remember, at that point, I'm vice president. And they are telling me, a vice president who wants to run for election, they are telling me to support them, and by chance, they might give me the speakership or something. So I was very blunt, and that's my problem. Because I was very blunt with them. I said, my friends, you know, if I was to drop my bid now and say I'm supporting you, I will not be adding value to you. So I wish you well, but I'm not supporting you. The following 2 days, Raila Odinga comes here to this gazebo. And Wazirs have asked me, he comes with some leaders, people, men like David Musila, Johnson Modama, and others, to ask me, are there things you and Raila did to each other which are irreconcilable? Because we want you to work with them. The setting is this gazebo.
Yes.
So I told them, except one time Raila said, jokingly, when I was leading in opinion polls ahead of Kibaki and Raila at one time. Raila Odinga now, to dismiss me, said, politics is not beauty contest. That's the only thing I remember negative.
Yes.
All right? I have no problem. So we decided to work together. Yeah, the setting was this gazebo. And since then, international friends who want to see me at home will come here, and other friends who have serious consultations. I hope it is not bugged.
There's never been any walkout.
We will sweep this place.
Safe to say that probably is, but there's never been any walkouts from this room?
No.
When you're having...
At least because it is at home, I think it has got that dignity. Everybody who comes here respects it. And we pray here a lot. So it's actually, for me, like an altar as well. We pray. Because
you've mentioned the irreconcilable or irreconcilable differences with Raila. In chapter 18, you say, ups and downs with Raila. My relationship with Raila Odinga has been interesting and intriguing, full of drama and controversy. It is a relationship that has left me bruised and smeared in political mud, and at times smiling and shining in heroic oil. The media and political analysts have at times described us as sworn enemies. His supporters have in some instances accused me of betraying him. Some even gave me a tag, the watermelon, during campaigns for the draft constitution in 2010. When I joined the government of Kibaki in 2008 after the disputed 2007 general election, anger and fury greeted me from Raila's supporters. Where is your relationship right now, would you say, with Raila?
I think I've spent a lot of time telling you I have no issues with him. We are wishing him well in his bid for the AU chairmanship. As of now, we're in Azimio, whatever is Azimio.
That is spent.
Yeah, which is almost spent, almost. because it's still there. Because I gave you the example of our leaders in Parliament.
Yes.
All right? So within Azimio. But apart from that, very little else. I have personally no problem. But I've told Raila my mind. Our relationship has been such that I tell him what nobody else can tell him, and he also tells me the same. So, right now, I told him his legacy is in jeopardy. Yes. I told him that, and he must do something to reclaim it. If it is his AUC business, if I were him, I would say, forget it. My country and everything is more important. Because he has built such a legacy,
right,
that you just can't throw it out.
Isn't there a part of Kalonzo that says, Ndugu, the very least ungefanya is to say, Kalonzo tosha?
I don't believe in that. If we will have I wouldn't want to force it on him. In fact, that's a tired phrase. Kenyans don't want to hear of Fulani tosha because this tosha business brings problems, all right? So people must stand up. If Kalonzo is spineless, no amount of tosha Kalonzo can help him. But if the guy has stood the test of time, and Kenyans are seeing a different Kalonzo, all right? Mm-hmm. Then they should support him. And when they do, knowing Raila, he also say, Niko hapo.
There's someone else that you mentioned came to this gazebo and brought Raila, and that is Mudhama.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with Mudhama?
He's my brother. He's my brother. He's messed up. He was made chairman of UDA.
Yes.
Because they thought they get Mudhama as chairman of UDA, then Kalonzo is finished. There are those who believed that Mudhama was my financier, Mudhama was everything, all right? Now the story is different. Mudhama knows he's my brother and he can come back to me. I've seen him the other day complaining somewhere that he's the one who makes presidents. He made Kibaki, he made Raila, he made Ruto. But he should not be left kwa mataa. So he's my brother. Anytime.
You'd still talk to him?
Well, we met at a funeral last time. I gave him a responsibility to talk to his community, right? And make sure they kind of speak the same language. I didn't seem to have taken that seriously because his idea then was take the community, take them to Ruto.
Right. And it's him, he's quoted in an article, Mudhama, as saying that the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative, was used by Uhuru and Raila, both who've sat in this gazebo, to find and forge a way forward to avoid honoring the famous memorandum of understanding that you have previously spoken about. You were played.
Oh, I've been played. That for sure. By the way, I hope Uhuru does not mind if I say this. Recently I met him and he said, my brother Steve, forgive me for what I'm going to tell you. So I said, hi, how can a former head of state apologize ahead of time about what he wants to tell me? He told me, the problem with you is you're too trusting. I will forever thank Uhuru Kenyatta because I now have to be less trusting of anybody when it comes to these issues about leadership. I have been played, but I think Kenyans now know I've also been selfless. I've been able to say, if it is a decision, let us all go in that direction after reflection, after consultation. For example, in 2022, I mean, can you imagine having been Raila's running mate in 2013 and in 2017, and on both occasions, according to me, we won. Now in 2022, I was not interviewed to be his running mate in 2013 and in 2017, but I was interviewed in 2022. I took it in his stride. I went to that interview room at Serena. A lot of media were there and were wondering whether I was out of my mind. I said, no. I think it was on the advice of somebody called Professor Macau, who lives in the US, all right? And who says, you don't just pick a running mate, subject them to some interviews. I went in there and I took it. Other people could have said, enough is enough.
I've proven myself.
I could have said, this is the end of our relationship. But I stood with Raila. In fact, delivered more to him than ever before.
Were you in talks, and this is something else Mudama is quoted in an article as saying that you're in talks with William Ruto ahead of 2022 elections to get into a pact with him. Was there such a conversation?
In 2022?
Yes.
Before 2022?
Yes.
We had an MOU. In fact, a very important document. Because after 2017, Raila and I signed a document witnessed by Professor Makau Mutua.
Yes.
The original copies, I think he went with one to New York. I kept one in my safe, and Raila kept the other one. And the operative paragraph was, win or lose in 2017, I will support Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka in 2022. That was a fact. Maybe that's what Uhuru meant by saying you are too trusting, because I trusted that. Now come to think of it, I trusted that. I trusted the thing under my signature. My word has always been my bond.
So
whenever I take time, many people think, oh, but a leader must listen to the various opinions and make up your mind. Whenever I listen and I assess a situation and make up my mind, always guided by what is in the best interest of the country, I've acted accordingly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have looked at working together with William. You looked at working together with William Ruto in 2020.
In fact, as Mudama was sent by William Ruto, he came to this room. That's another aspect. He came to this room with my chairman of the party at that time, Ambassador Ali Makwere.
Yes.
And they were also in the company of Senator for Mombasa, who was also Secretary General of WIPA. Now he's Secretary General of UDA, Hassan Omar.
Yeah.
And Mudama explained that he has been, without Kumbe, they had left Ruto at some corner, and they were determined to take him some response. So after about 40 to 1 hour presentation, after listening to them, they said they want to take an answer to William Ruto. Take an answer to William Ruto. I thought of, I love music, and some of it is political music. Yes. I don't know whether you have seen a group that sang, the answer is written in the wind, blowing. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. If you Google that, you'll be amazed. How many times will it take cannonballs to be silenced during civil rights movement? And how many miles will it take a white dove to fly until she sits on the sand? How many times will it take a man like Ruto to know that people are dying? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. That was the answer I gave to Mudama from this room.
You gave him the lyrics.
Yes, I gave him the lyrics. Actually, Ambassador Makwere had heard of that composition.
What was the pitch?
The pitch?
What was the pitch to you?
The pitch was, I think they wanted me to join him.
As a running mate?
No, I don't even remember what they wanted. My mind was clear. I couldn't join William Ruto. Even now, my mind is very clear. So when people are saying, oh, okay, now Kalonzo is alive, and right, actually, recently there was a Standard newspaper report saying the last man standing. So Raila called me from Malindi, and we laughed, and they said, wow, you're the last man standing. Yes. So I think Kenyans have now come to appreciate who I am. Very simple. Very caring, by the way.
Yes.
I love my country. And I love my friends. I don't know how to betray my friends. I don't. And I would want anybody perhaps to say I betrayed them. No.
Right.
I just do what is right. All right? So that is Mudama. He's my brother. And I think he knows he has to come to do what he must do.
Speaking of which, because you recently told him to go and speak to his people so that you could be on the same, they could speak with the same voice. Kamba Nation. Who is the leader of the Kamba Nation today, politically speaking?
These are people led by Constitution 2010. The 3 counties in that region, and these days I hear it being referred to as part of the mountain, because there's been an integration with their cousins, the Kikuyus. The Kikuyus, the Merus, the Mberes, right? The Tharakas, where Kindiki comes from, the Kambas. These are historically one community. And I think they realize in order to have security in the country, right, they should hold together. So they looked at the history, they looked at all these things. So they said, rather than now do what we did in 2007, when the community came and said, you must now reach out to Kibaki. The same Kena Mudama, Musila,
Yes.
The late Mutula Kalonzo, they came. And they said, no, we must form a coalition with Kibaki. So now why don't we now become integrated? The community is integrated. Can you imagine? All right? So they have 3 governors. Governor Kitui, Governor Machakos, Governor Makueni. Those are their leaders at that level. At the national level, their leader is the Constitution of Kenya.
Politically speaking, is
But I'm part of them.
KALONZO MUSYOKA, Alfred
I'm not a community leader.
Is Alfred Mutua.
I've never laid claim to being, but I think the community looks at me and they have understood me. And people are actually mystified by that community. While other people struggle to win the confidence of their communities. These people know me. They elected me when I was a bachelor, before I married Pauline in 1985. I never used to smoke. I never used to drink. And when I want them to laugh, I say I was never even a womanizer. So they know me. They know me.
So yes.
So when you win the confidence of the people, okay?
Who has the confidence of the Kamba Nation, politically speaking, as their leader? Is it KALONZO MUSYOKA? Is it?
I think they support me now more than ever before. And that community is so united. It's unbelievable. So united. Absolutely united.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have
But they unite around an idea.
Do you unite?
I think they unite around an idea.
Yes.
All right? And they
the
are
idea,
very,
KALONZO.
by the way, they are, when it comes to a warrior nation, that's a warrior community. That's why under President Moi, right, to keep the country going, it was the Kalenjins and the Kambas. And during the Second World War, by the way, it was the Kambas and the Kalenjins who were always fighting. We went on a state visit to Eritrea with Mzee Moi when I was his foreign minister. And we saw Kibet, Mutua, buried out in Eritrea. So this is a very serious community. And they don't play around. They respect the Maasais a lot because they used to have their clashes. But they are not, and they, by the way, they occupy large tracts of land. And there are many. They are like the cousins, the Kikuyus. They are in the Coast Province. They are everywhere. Huh?
All right. You've answered that question quite diplomatically. You are, of course, an experienced career diplomat, and I appreciate that. Someone brings up something that we've just been talking about. George G., he comments, KALONZO, how do you plan to address the concerns about your ability to unify a fragmented opposition and appeal to a broader electorate in 2027 elections?
I think the opposition is not fragmented. Again, fragmentation as a relation to lack of ideas. I think that the opposition, and that's why we have no option, all of us in opposition, but to unite. The other day I went to get Senator Okiya Mtata from police cells because he took part and did what he does very well. I think he put some minyeroros around him and was picked up and placed put in police cells overnight. We went and got him out.
He's declared.
And the idea is we cannot allow this country to get out of the cardinal principle of the rule of law and constitutionalism.
Right.
See, the problem with people like Ruto, and that's why I think he opposed his constitution. It's like he knew it was going to tie his legs and his arms. There's nothing he can do about it.
Okay.
So he opposed it when he led the no campaign. Give it to him on that score. Maybe he could see if he was ever going to become president, he will have to abide by what the express provisions of the Constitution are, like very strong on integrity, Chapter 6. And the problem right now in this administration is state capture. Mm-hmm. I have said that when we take over, one of the things we shall do is have another commission to deal with this matter of state capture. These undannies, these things are deep, not just about JKIA. Now people know, even Ketrako and other places, state capture.
Right.
The problem is lack of observance to Chapter 6 of our Constitution. And very strong on the Bill of Rights and Article 43. Our Constitution is what is going to unite us. Anybody who wants to uphold the rule of law will have no option but to unite under that idea.
Okay.
And I'm not worried at all.
Okay.
I'm not worried because I think people will unite together.
So you have clearly said when we take over, that's the first thing you'll deal with, meaning you envision taking over the leadership of the country. Would that be as you as the leader? Is Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka?
Of course, I'll attempt, when the time comes, to convince my colleagues to back that effort.
Your effort?
Because I believe the time is now. This is the time. If there's anybody in our ranks with, can I put it without bragging, with deeper sense of understanding of a nation state, with greater experience than I have seen, having served in so many ministries, people even forget. The other day I said to write my CV is a problem. Mm-hmm. I'm actually having Kina Paloma to update it. People forget I was MP in the backbench for 1 year, became assistant minister for works, housing, and fiscal planning, served under the late Ken Matiba, the late Oletipis, became then elected deputy speaker, and after serving for 5 years as deputy speaker, I was appointed foreign minister. Twice, minister for environment, minister for education, when the teachers went on strike, by the way, because our late friend Kamodo and others had negotiated some deal with the teachers. People, Katumanga and the late Ambrose Andongo, Secretary General King, those who are the real unionists. Mm-hmm. I try to tell them, my friends coming from the world of diplomacy, I told them, we are in this thing together with the teachers. We either swim or sink together. And I'm sure we're going to agree on these terms. So lady teachers came demonstrating outside Jogo House, and my wife was working from the Treasury building, and she saw them demonstrating, chanting, minister with baby face, sink with the canoe, and not with teachers. I always remember that. I think it's in the book.
Right? And we'll talk about this as we wind it up.
So
you say it's high time.
So for me, therefore, if any of my colleagues can have a better profile, right? I think I'll be willing to say yeah. But if that is outstanding in itself, and somebody who has given perhaps higher sacrifice than me, and they are there, we will discuss. But I think on balance, I seem to hear Kenyans saying, this is the time, so that we sort out this country, and after our term, we give it to the young Kenyans. The Gen Zs now require this mentorship. They have the energy, they have the ability. That's what I'm saying. If they willingly agree to work with all of us together, because even them, they must have a primacy of place primacy of place.
You've touched on something that has been brought up by a comment audience on TikTok, and
Yeah.
I think this is, Pabi, you say, do you think it's high time Gen Z took over because you, the elderly, have been defeated to fulfill the promises?
I think they should allow us to straighten the country and hand it over to them. We are not defeated. We have all the experience,
But
we
you
know
have been
the
in
potholes,
success.
we know the tricks, we know this country. All we need to do is to have a leadership that will uphold the Constitution, first and foremost. And then enjoy the trust of the international community as well. I can tell you, I think with my experience in foreign relations, mistakes like are happening in the DRC
I'm getting to that.
Yeah?
I'll get to that.
will not happen.
Respond to It's Me on TikTok. It's time we do away with all Moi orphans. Raila, Ruto, Uhuru, Gachagua, Kalonzo, Matiang'i, Weta, Madividi, etc. What do you say to that?
Ruto himself is an orphan of Moi. Okay?
Yes, he's actually mentioned.
No,
Ruto,
no.
Uhuru.
You don't demonize Moi. Moi must be given credit. When I was Minister for Education, Moi gave me the responsibility to reform our education system, the 844 system. Because Kenyan parents were arguing, Mark, no, our children are overworked and blah, blah, blah. Because Moi had visited Japan, and that's why he came up with 844 system of education. I appointed the late Dr. David Koech as a chairperson of that task force. And they compiled a report which is there, amazing, called The Ticket, all right? So look at the footprint of Moi in the education sector. You'll be amazed, all right?
So it's not
and
time to do away with
Moi was bold enough, human enough, gracious enough to hand over to Kibaki, with whom he had some differences.
I believe after 24
All right.
hours, people would argue whether he was gracious enough.
He was. He handed over. And I remember people throwing mud balls at him and whatever. He was. I can tell you. And Moi was a believer. I can tell you that. A believer, was a faith-based person. He had people who committed excesses under him. And one time he told me, by the way, you remember the story of the Bull of Auckland. Your viewers may not remember that. But we had gone to Auckland to attend a Commonwealth Heads of State and Government Summit called CHOGM. And there, the leader in Nigeria called Abacha had accused a young activist of the pollution in the Nile, in the region that produces most of the oil, called Ken Sarawiwa. The late Madiba, Mandela had come on as a president of South Africa and was attending for the first time the Heads of State Summit. Then we had there with in our delegation the late Toto Man, Mheshimiwa Biwott, and people like Tony Ndilinge, and the story of the Bull of Auckland. I handled it so professionally. And to conclude the matter, a gentleman who was a foreign minister, later became Secretary General of the Commonwealth. I told him, I'm going to advise my president to leave this summit. Oh, that terrified them. And then I said, you have to talk to your media here, right? New Zealand media, to make sure that we don't embarrass the Kenyan delegation until we know. You know, the truth was, Honorable Biwott's privacy was interfered with by a screaming girl who went around screaming all over the place, okay? And then they ended up being the Bull of Auckland, okay? Now, Moi wrote a letter, wrote to me. No, he sat me down and he told me, Stephen, he said very reflectively, when troubles come, they don't come singly. That was very philosophical. Another time, we were at an OAU summit in Addis Ababa, and he saw the late Muammar Gaddafi, brother Gaddafi. He sent aircraft to bring African heads of state. Actually, I think I should have been the candidate, not Raila on this thing, all right? Because of the experience I have with these things. And I think Ruto himself was hard to say, Was it Ruto? I was saying if it was Steve, he would support me or something. But I heard that, it's a rumor. Now, Moi wrote there and said, he looked at all these African heads of state. Moi was a stickler for the sovereignty of Kenya. He would not allow the dignity of this country he could not auction it. So he wrote he used to, as a teacher, he used to write meticulously.
Okay.
He wrote and said, he who pays the piper calls the tune. You could see a lot of people, other people are calling the tune in our country, even now, because there's somebody paying the piper. Okay. So Moi, I think, apart from those excesses that time, and of course when second liberation happened, he gave way. I was the master of ceremony when we amended Article 2A of the Constitution to restore multi-party democracy. And I felt as Deputy Speaker and KANU's organizing secretary, this is the thing to do. I think I understood his mindset. So I cannot defend Moi, but I think he has been sometimes unfairly misunderstood.
And maybe you were just responding to the comment there that it's time we do away with all Moi orphans.
That's what I was responding.
Uhuru, Gachagua, Kalonzo, Matiang'i, Weta, Madividi, etc. That's their opinion.
Madividi, I think more than all of us. Yeah.
To go. Now that he's siding with Kalonzo, with Ruto.
Madividi was Moi's son, I think. Very close.
Very close.
Yeah, he was brought up. I mean, his father dies, and then he's picked from somewhere. He was a quantity, some surveyor with some, I think, some quantity survey farm, and he's made the youngest minister and given ministry straight away.
So he got it on the silver platter.
In fact, overstepping me. But then time we end up with Mudavadi. I'm foreign minister, he's treasury. We restored the confidence of the Bretton Woods institutions. We have done work for this country.
Speaking of work for this country, and you've just cited the mistakes that have been done in regards to DRC and what's going on in Goma.
Yeah.
What mistakes are those?
First of all, just before Uhuru left office, he was appointed by the East African heads of state as a chief mediator to oversee the conflict in eastern DRC. This area covering Kivu all the way to Ngoma, northern Kivu. And he was then supposed to be facilitated to work with the Presidents Kagame, Felix Tshisekedi in particular, all right? And he went with, I think he took his responsibility very seriously, because I think the one time he called people to Nairobi in Safari Park and other places followed that. But what happens after William Ruto takes over? The first thing he does is to make sure that, because the host country, where former President Uhuru came from, should have supported his mission. The first thing is, don't support Uhuru, we want him out. Remember, there was a lot of bad blood, which seems to have improved only recently. A lot of bad blood, including taking over Uhuru's party, Jubilee. And the Ruto claiming, this is my party. I made Jubilee what it is. Now, he's forgotten he's also UDA. You cannot have two parties. You can only belong to one. So he believes UDA, Niake, and Jubilee up to now. But I think now he has let go, thanks to the visit he made to Ishaweri. He realized, these things could have been done differently. But back to DRC, when Uhuru realized he couldn't operate, of course, countries of SADC, hostilities were growing, and Angola took over the responsibility. I remember last time Uhuru, I tried to get him, he was in Luanda, saying he's just there as an observer. And SADC countries took over. Remember, there was an East African force.
Yes.
And eventually it was disbanded. Okay? I don't know, misconduct or whatever it was. So that situation was badly handled. Now, one time, Uhuru sent me as a special envoy to go and put together Felix Tshisekedi and Kabila, because Kabila had left office, but was I was afraid of what is happening here. And so here in Nairobi at the Serena Hotel, Felix Tshisekedi had come in here, Uhuru embraced him, and then of course, you need friends everywhere. So he ends up being the president, but with a minority in parliament. That's why I went in now to work on that coalition. That's why I find it easy. I mean, we can do coalition in Congo, we can do it here at home.
So with Kabila and Kagame, I mean, with Tshisekedi and Kagame,
they formed.
What should be done? What should Ruto do?
You know, there must still be an element of Kabila because that coalition eventually collapsed. But in the meantime, I remember when now Uhuru went in for the swearing-in ceremony of Tshisekedi, I was in Kinshasa waiting for him. I think, in fact, Raila and him flew in together from Mombasa. He was the only African head of state in attendance at that swearing-in ceremony. Across the river Congo, the huge river Congo, is Congo-Brazzaville. The president then didn't even come. And for a moment I was afraid of the security of both Raila and Uhuru. And I remember advising them to leave. If they were going to fly over the dense Congo forest, they should leave at a certain time. And they did what they listened, they took off. Yeah. But during the swearing-in of Felix Tshisekedi, he almost died. I think he was suffocating because he later on found he was wearing a jacket which was almost killing him, a bulletproof thing. Thank God he survived and everything went on well. Right. But during the second swearing-in ceremony now, everybody was there. Kagame, I don't know that Kagame came, but Museveni sent the prime minister and whatever. All the African heads now were there. I happen to have been there now, just although I was not in that thing. Now, what does William Ruto do? He calls a group led by the leader of Electoral Commission to Nairobi, or they asked him to come. So they came to Serena, they were given state reception, and they announced what he called River Congo Basin Initiative, whose purpose is to throw out Felix Tshisekedi. At that time, because I think William thought this is Uhuru's friend, I have no business working with him. But things have changed. This is part of the mistake, these contradictions. We do not have a foreign policy now.
Is the mistake with Kagame, just shortly with your experience, where everyone is pointing fingers at him for fighting within the eastern region?
You see, the thing about, you must also understand, when the late President Habyarimana and his Burundi counterpart were shot down in 1994, and as a result of that, right, that was a spark that lit that country. Then the genocide happened in 1994. Over nearly 1 million people were killed, all right? A lot of those killers, the gangs, right, commonly referred to as Interahamwe, crossed over to the DRC. This obviously has been Kagame's biggest headache. And there's a community there called the Banyamulenge, all right? They are Congolese. So this thing needed serious engineering, to get both President Kagame and President Felix Tshisekedi to appreciate in good time the intricacy of this conflict. But Uhuru was not given that leeway. The time that we lost has now resulted in the killings, what's happening in Goma. And I cannot really, I must lay blame on this. Now, William Ruto is the current chair of East African Community, now complete even with Somalia.
Yes.
A gentleman who was the Secretary General of East African Community, Ambassador Peter Mathuki, who used to be Secretary General of Wiper Democratic Movement. That party, by the way, is old. It's not very young party. It has had 3 Secretaries General, I think 4. The first one was Mutula Kalonzo. Then after that, I think Hassan Omar, Ambassador Judicial, now Shakil Abdallah and others. Now, Peter Mathuki, William Ruto, realizing this was Secretary General, Chama ya Wiper, obviously decided he must go. To make it worse, he was an appointee of Uhuru Kenyatta. So Peter Mathuki, I don't even know where he is. He's ambassador somewhere. I think he's now ambassador in Moscow, because he had to be thrown out, taken out of the secretary. This is a man who brought DRC Congo on instructions of Uhuru Kenyatta to make DRC Congo a member of East African Community.
Right.
And the biggest expansion was under Mathuki. He brought in Somalia as well in order to guarantee regional peace and security. If I have time, I'll talk to you about a lot about
So you're
Somalia.
saying the escalation there and some of the problems we're facing are based on Ruto settling scores with Uhuru.
Indeed, absolutely.
And that's why we have the
Yes.
complications
Absolutely.
clawed back on the gains
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
DRC.
Partly, there must be, of course, other issues.
Of course.
There must
But-
be other issues. But to me, that stands out.
Okay.
Because Uhuru was not given the opportunity to deliver on that very crucial mandate.
Okay. Internationally, we're at an interesting time, especially now with the new Trump administration. Just the other day, former President Uhuru Kenyatta said, why are you guys crying when funding is being held back, when you are meant to be making measures to prioritize for your own nation? Trump is prioritizing for Americans, his taxpayers. What do you say to that?
I think the context, I have not spoken to Uhuru since they made that statement, but I think he was also making a parallel
Yeah.
that look at the arms, the expenditure on buying arms to kill each other, like in the Eastern DRC. That amount, if that money was taken and was dedicated to buy antiretrovirals to deal with HIV and other things, don't you think we could make a difference, even out of internally generated resources?
Yes.
So it's a wake-up call, because Trump said, America first.
Yes.
America first. And I'm happy he has reversed that thing, because a lot
True.
of suffering patients all over the world, I think, made him reverse that executive order.
But what stance do you feel, or at least how should the outlook for Ruto be? Because under Biden's administration, you would say he had a lot of favor. I mean, he had a state visit to the United States.
Yeah.
They had
Was
really
pampered,
good
literally.
relationship. Pampered, you say?
Was pampered by Biden.
So
And then, as a result, they did two things which I'm opposed to.
Right.
Number one is agreeing that we, without the express consent at the time of the UN Security Council, right, which is the body charged with the responsibility of maintaining international peace and security, we take our policemen here as if to reward them, because remember that time it was Kome who was leading.
There's a praying mantis on you. I don't know if it's
It's a good guy.
microphone or if it's
microphone.
Maybe it's a good omen.
Yeah.
It's a praying mantis. So you
Praying
say,
mantis, it's praying.
at the point that you say,
He's actually listening. At the point I say,
the point that you say Ruto was pampered then.
yes.
Biden. Yeah.
And I said that out of that state visit, two things emerged. And I am opposed, and I said it. Number one is deploying our police force to Haiti under some kind of a deal. And I would, in fact, I heard when they had a telephone conversation between Ruto and the new Secretary of State, Mark Ruby, yeah? They tried to talk about that as well. But I would want to urge the Trump administration to really lift the lead on that deal. How our men, against a court order, because there's a persisting court order, said you cannot do that. You cannot take our men to Haiti at that time. But they went, I think actually on the day Parliament was breached by Gen Zs, that's when the first batch left the country. Number two thing out of that state visit was that Kenya is a non-NATO ally. What does that mean? Now places us at arm's length. Since independence in 1963, our foreign policy orientation has been that we are a non-aligned nation. The Bandung Conference of 1945, soon after the World War, Second World War, yeah, got serious statesmen. And we need also to let our younger people know where we have all come from. Abdel Nasser, that time of Egypt, people like Tito of Yugoslavia, as it then was, people like Nkrumah, people like Kenyatta at the time, they all congregated. And Nehru, all right, Nyerere, they started the non-aligned movement. Because we do not have to put ourselves on the firing line. We were hit here in 1998. At a time we were not even a non-NATO ally. When the American embassy was hit here, we were collateral damage. Remember, 222 Kenyans were killed against some 20 Americans who were shot at the embassy.
Yeah.
Now, had, by the way, the world taken note of what happened at that 1998 bombing, maybe September 11 would not have happened. That is my thesis. But the point here,
the outlook.
Now that we were not even that time when we were hit, we are not seen to be American allies. We were non-aligned. Now we are aligned, my friend, following that visit by William Ruto. I question the wisdom behind that situation. Because our Shabab now or other people, today as we speak, is indeed the case, 5 of our chiefs have been abducted.
Yes.
Ahead of Ruto's visit to Garissa. We took a very dangerous position. We work all the time. We have worked very closely with our American friends. A lot of Kenyans in the diaspora work in America. We have even encouraged a situation of dual citizenship under our new constitution. We are best friends from the days of the airlift organized by the late Tom Joseph Mboya and the Kennedys. Robert Kennedy, right, was brother to President Kennedy that time. Remember, in order to capacity build, our first team of leaders were trained in America. Therefore, the ties between Kenya and the United States are very solid. But you don't need to add fuel to a very friendly situation by declaring an African nation, right, a non-NATO ally. By the way, I don't know which other country. And if, by the way, if Raila was to lose this chairmanship, I'll blame that decision as well.
And this, you're talking about many things that you have done in the space of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, your political office, which is in this book right here that you want to relaunch. I guess in audio format because you also want to get more to the Gen Z.
Yes, indeed. Is it Amazon and others?
Yeah, and the Gen Z audience will definitely want to hear the history because it's an easy read. I've just kind of scoured through it a bit, and it's an easy read looking at the history, really, of the politics because you're looking at your time under the Moi government, Moi Kibaki, and since then, your efforts within the government. So this you are keen on putting together as an audiobook mid this year and relaunching.
Yes, indeed.
This really looks like you're putting it, are you aligning it with the relaunch of something? Is there a big announcement coming up? But tell us about this.
The announcement, by the way, make no mistake, we'll have to announce it. We've already made it clear to Kenyans that we are going to drive William Ruto home, God willing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was making a joke yesterday because William attacked me in Western.
Yes.
When he said, this Kalonzo man, is he...
Based on what you said, he
about
said
the vaccinations of animals. Saying that with regard to this methane gas business, right, they wanted to use our livestock as a testing ground, a research of some kind, by bringing that vaccination. Of course, they have all since recoiled and said, because we are used to ECF, vaccination, or read the page or whatever. But what is this thing all about? Now, when I talked about that, my good friend William, because we are still good friends, by the way. Our children are very good friends. So, with each other. Yeah. So, and the one time when during ICC, William Ruto used to say, Steve, continue being our big brother. I think he has since forgotten. Now, he said, oh, okay, then the Gen Zs have established that since he took over, he has told in excess of 5,000 lies. All right? So now, that's why some young people have petitioned the Chief Justice to try and see whether the president's mental ability is what it is. But yesterday in church I said, please pray for William Ruto and myself. Okay? Because if William thinks there's something wrong with my head, I'm ready to subject myself to some mental examination. But he also needs, because my friend has lied so many times, there must be something, there's something wrong.
So you
That's
say
on a light,
he should have his head
light note.
He should get checked.
It should be checked.
But are you aligning the relaunch of this in June to something bigger for you politically for the future?
There must be progression, and assuming that all factors remain constant. This country will have an election in 2027.
Yes.
Therefore, we must prepare for that.
Because it says against all odds, and you will
Yes.
be going against big odds.
I have gone,
If indeed
actually,
you
the reality of this
your-
thing now, everybody writing me off against all odds, you get messed up, you get betrayed, you get called names, against all odds. We are heading there. Come to think of it, it's a very prophetic headline.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just asking because it will be in June, smack
Yeah.
in the middle.
Yeah.
June, I don't know if you'll align it to, it'll be June 25th, 1 year since the Gen Z.
We will, of course, be
met.
rebranding. By the way, Wiper Democratic Movement, the party that I'm honored to lead as a party leader, is actually older than ODM. And ODM are celebrating 20 years. So it's slightly ahead of ODM. Remember, Wiper Democratic Movement was first registered as ODM Kenya. And then some confusion, blah, blah, blah. Our friends in ODM say that I sent Senator Manzo to run away with the party or something to that effect, okay? So we are older than ODM.
Right.
And certainly older than UDA, older than, how old is UDA? I don't see it surviving. I think it's falling apart.
Morphing it.
Yeah.
People
and
joining UDA.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So and yet we are also thinking of modifying, rebranding the party itself
Okay.
to make it be all-inclusive, embrace the Gen Zs if we can. Of course, we have Young Democrats chapter, but we would want to bring more Gen Zs. And I can tell you that when it comes to negotiating, we will have to give a certain strong consideration to the role the young people are going to play so that we prepare them to take over the leadership of the country.
So even having inclusion of Gen Z within, within the movement
Absolutely.
going forward.
Women, people with disabilities.
All right.
The
May
party
I
is
ask-
strong.
May I ask, because that really says, it echoes what Uhuru said not too long ago, that yes, you Gen Z, don't be quiet. Keep doing what you've been doing. If you keep quiet, they'll get away with a lot. Has Uhuru been, or are you in consultation with Uhuru in the way forward now politically? Are you talking to him?
Of course, I like to imagine in the coalition we are now molding that we'll be together with Jubilee. Remember? In fact, I want to foresee a situation where we migrate ODM, Jubilee, Wiper, DAP, KANU to the new coalition and invite others who want to join. That's my thinking at the moment.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are also in active consultation with statesmen like Uhuru?
Yeah, absolutely. Once in a while, we try to reach out to him.
Matiang'i?
He is a council chairman. I met Matiang'i in the US, and when he went back, he called me. We're in consultation.
You're in consultation with
Yeah,
him
yeah.
as well?
Yeah. All the progressive forces, my friend, who want to save this country. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a lot to...
From overtaxation. But I must congratulate William for accepting his new titles.
which are?
Kasongo, Zakayo. He said, I don't mind. I think that his advisors must have told him, if you accept it, including dancing at the end of the year party to the Kasongo music. Actually, we all need comic relief as leaders.
Although much of what Kenyans are facing, to be honest, they would say is not a laughing matter.
It's terrible.
So
Overtaxation.
I'd want to give you an opportunity at this point, that's your camera, to speak to Kenyans, Wananchi, that you have served and that you look to serve. What is your commitment to Kenyans moving forward as Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, leader of Wiper Party, first of all?
A lot of friends have given me the name David. a man after God's own heart, a servant leader. I want to urge my countrymen to always keep hope alive. We are going through plenty of challenges: unemployment, lack of food on the table. In fact, this year alone promises to be very hard from the kind of weather predictions we are seeing. People can't afford school fees, university fees. I want to urge them to be reflective at this particular time and to know that their freedoms are guaranteed under Constitution 2010. If there's ever a good heritage document that Kibaki gave this country, it was Constitution 2010. It is not a perfect document. Constitution cannot be static. It is a progressive document. Future generations may want to look at it and whatever. But for now, I urge that we all recognize the new freedom. I think that the 25th of June, I said that in my earlier presentation, marks a milestone of a new Kenya. We should celebrate June 25th as the birth of a new Kenya. We've talked about the liberation of course, independence in 1963, and second liberation of the champions who did that, the Young Turks and others, and the third liberation, which we've been talking about. But all of that now gets subsumed into what I'm calling a new Kenya. We have all to relate to that situation as parents, as young people, and allow the Gen Zs also to be mentored, to continue to correct. The next election should not be stealable, if that is the correct English. Nobody should be allowed to steal the next election, because this is where the rain always beats us. People troop to polling stations, and at the end of the day, their vote does not seem to count. There was a clear 8 million of us who did not vote in 2022, particularly the middle class. These are the Kenyans who are suffering the weight of a meaningless payslip, who can't feed their families. The wake-up call is there now. We all come up, say no to overtaxation, say no to abductions, say no to stealing of our resources. This is a time for us Kenyans to re-emerge as a serious nation. And we'll be able to educate our children, we'll be able to hand over to future generations. That's my message. Therefore, keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Yes.
Titus Mwangi says in the comments, among many other comments, Kalonzo toa Kasongo 2027. Kalonzo in, Kasongo out. So on that point, I'd also like to give you, and earlier you said you didn't know about it, but as he calls you big brother, that is William Samoei Ruto, what is your message to him?
Well, William, you know we know each other. I think we should, both of us, be guided by the fact that we love this country more than ourselves. Prepare to leave office in a fair, democratic election. Allow due process. Allow the constitutional institutions to thrive. Do not dismantle. Nothing personal. All there is the love of our country, so that you and I and others will bequeath our future generations with a functioning democracy. not a dictatorship.
In a couple of weeks or so, Raila Amolo Odinga, they're going for the elections of AU chairmanship. What's your message to him?
A message to Raila, our big brother, we wish you well. And you know we mean it. I even made a joke with you. I told him, when you become the next chair of the AU Commission, you consider appointing me the AU chairperson special envoy to Sudan. Forget even about South Sudan. Sudan, the world's biggest humanitarian crisis, is staring at us. The Republic of Sudan, not even South Sudan. And if you don't mind, you can even consider coming home, and because you will not be able to actively participate in the local politics, just stand in the middle. The least I expect of you is not to support William Samoei Arap Ruto, because you will have destroyed your own legacy. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you so much, Bwana Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, leader of Wiper Party and also leader of the People's Loyal Opposition, and the 10th Vice President, it should be said, among many other accolades that you can get by reading this particular book, Against All Odds, which I believe is very much available in your favorite bookstore, but it will be relaunched in June. And so you should look forward to that, because it might also have a big announcement, politically speaking. With that time, it'll be 4 months from now. A lot will have happened politically, and we'll see where things are going into 2027. So you should be expecting an audio version of this if you fancy that format. Asante sana for your time. Thank you for having us here at the famous gazebo.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
this, I'm sure a lot of what has been said here will have written history once we look back after several months and even years to what you said today, having come through and passed to pass. Asante sana, and all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Social Newsroom, and remember to subscribe to Semabox TV on YouTube. And of course, this is where you'll get all your news of the week moving forward. Asante sana, have yourselves a good night, and as Mheshimiwa said, keep hope alive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
Asante
much.
sana. Thank you so much.
Thank you.